Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And now we're going on to Philip Ringler. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I just said that. Philip Ringler and his exhibit called This Exhibit, his presentation is called This Exhibit is Closed, which already makes me laugh. There's so much humor in this work, you'll see. But let me tell you a little bit about him. Philip Ringler has been making photographs professionally since he was 19. He has photographed musicians and also worked as a commercial photographer, published in the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, and Art in America, to name a few. He received his Bachelor of Fine Arts at California State University, East Bay, and earned a Master of Fine Arts from John F. Kennedy University's Arts and Consciousness program. His studies in art theory, East Asian philosophy, and art, along with living and traveling in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong, have informed much of his work in the past 10 years. Philip's artwork is in private collections, galleries, and museums all over the world. He mainly exhibits internationally, especially in Europe and Asia. He currently lives in Orlando, Florida, with his partner Anna and cats Penny, who's a calico, and Carl, who's a cow again. Okay. Philip, you might want to explain that last one, but later.
Yeah, well, I mean, they call them tuxedo cats sometimes because they're black and white, but I like cow. It's a little more descriptive. Joanne, your work's so amazing. That was so cool. I really got some great insight into your work. That was wonderful. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love doing these kind of things and talking about this work. It's what keeps me up at night. It's what I think about. And this project, I'm so happy to finally have released the entirety of this project in book form, which is really the format for this work that it was intended. So a lot of the pictures that we're looking at here, they do sometimes function with their counterpart, and you get an idea. Some of them, I like to keep each image should be self-realized on its own terms, but there's a relational nature to this series that is also important. And the way to find out about that is to buy my book. So you can do that after the thing. But yeah, this work was shot over a 10-year period, starting in 2013 when I was first invited to China by a friend of mine, a conceptual photographer named Leo Pan, invited me over to have some shows in Guangzhou and to give some lectures at a couple of different universities. And I was so welcome. I felt so welcome and so engaged in the Chinese culture, and people seemed to be so eager to learn about the creative process that I decided to move there in 2015. So the other work is when I was living there and traveling around the different cities in China in 2015, 2016, 2017. So yeah, this series, when I first got off the plane in China, I thought I was going to be shooting black and white images because I had been doing a lot of that previously, and the colors were so striking that I absolutely had to start shooting color. And I became obsessed with this particular kind of blue. I refer to it as huckleberry hound blue, which is this weird color that I just became really obsessed with finding it in different forms. And one of the forms that I would find it in is these simulated icebergs at these enclosures in amusement parks. And I have been, there's the examples right there. I had been photographing amusement parks and zoos and aquariums really since I started as a teenager. This is the first place my dad ever took me to take a picture, and he would point out, you know, that the horns on this one animal looks like a stick over here. And he really taught me to start seeing and looking for graphics around and looking for ways of composing images. And then that led me to photographers like Gary Winogrand, Elliot Erwitt, and ultimately to Dwayne Michaels, who really changed my life. So, you know, this work, it's, you know, it's motivated by understanding my relationship to photography and photography's relationship to reality. What is the consensus reality and what is photographic reality? So I do end up taking a lot of pictures of pictures. I'm interested in things that are being intentionally sort of representative of something else in order to sort of confound the viewer and create that suspension of disbelief that even though you can see the artifice, there's a certain believability that you're in another realm, you're in something. And when you photograph that, you can actually sort of design, I like to design the paradox within each image or within a series of images. So it's an exploration of not only my personal philosophy coming out of a sort of Buddhist perspective and coming out of photojournalism, where I, you know, decided at one point that my personality was coming out so much in my photojournalistic work that I decided I'm just gonna like become an artist so I can go full tilt the other way. And I don't have to be descriptive anymore. I can be as esoteric and philosophical as I want. So yeah, that's sort of in a nutshell what this series is kind of about.
Your pictures have both an incredible beauty and almost like a cruelty built into them. Evidenced especially by the enclosure with the polar bear in the cage and in that glass enclosure, and the image with the drain and the bars. You just see cruelty there. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
Absolutely. So from the beginning, when I'm making this work, there's an absolute attraction and repulsion at the same time happening. So I'm feeling attracted to the like infrastructure of the zoo as a like theatrical set or the aquarium or whatever. And I'm also being, you know, there's an ethical consideration that I have too when I'm doing this kind of work, where, you know, I really don't like zoos for what they're intended for. I don't like aquariums for what they're intended for. But I can go to these places and I can do a kind of I call it like a psychological scavenger hunt, where I can find the work that I need within these things and they inform what I want. But the actuality of what's happening there, it definitely, it informs the image too. So there's the sort of sublime nature of horrific prison for animals, as well as like a metaphor for, you know, human suffering and the illusion of imprisonment. So there are these two sort of paradoxical things that are held up there. And I'll say that, you know, when I've been doing this for so long, and I've gone to zoos and aquariums all over the world. I don't just like go in and do this work. I also report animal abuse to PETA. Like as soon as I got home, I sent that polar bear picture and a couple more to PETA International, because, you know, that polar bear it's in a horrible living situation in a mall underneath Guangzhou, and it's just, but the image itself becomes so powerful as a metaphor for this. Like, you see the polar bear, it looks like it's split in half, right? And for me, even though that's the only image of an animal actually that I have in this entire book, but it's the only image I need because it's so it could summarize the whole series on its own, because it is that about that here and there, that presence and dissipation of presence. And but in order to lighten it up, I have to show you like the way so I pair it with this other image on the other side. So I don't know if you can see that. So yeah, these two images, the polar bear and the picture of the legs, where they're on the glass. One is a little more humorous and the other one is a little more dark. And I want to do that to sort of diffuse the tension of the captured polar bear and have the reflection or the shadow of this fish underneath this one, which is, you know, for me, it's like sort of very Gary Winogrand silliness. But, you know, I do want to contain different levels of meaning and tone in one image. Like this one, for example, with the snake and this bench, like for me, it's kind of silly and ridiculous in some ways, because I like to imagine that this snake just, you know, reached out and just devoured who was ever on this bench. And you have the like remnants of blood and carnage kind of on this bench. And that's sort of like hilarious for me because it's the image that did this. But you know, when I pair it up with this other thing where there's a person without a head, to have that kind of photograph and anti-photograph conversation that I learned from Elliot Irwin.
Mm-hmm. We're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you if you wanted to comment on the Jerry Saltz quote.
Oh my God. First of all, I love Jerry Saltz with all my heart. He's why aren't all art critics as cool as Jerry?
I don't know, but let me give you the quote again, just so in case somebody hasn't seen it the first time. Art is a way of giving consciousness spatial form and dramaturgical structure.
When I first heard that, I was so happy to hear him say that, because that's really exactly what I'm trying to do here. You know, this idea of consciousness, our individual consciousness, the collective consciousness, a cultural consciousness, how to give those form, how to contain those things into a single image. And I think honestly, photography is one of the best mediums for that. It does it really successfully. So, you know, maybe that and music are the two ones that I think can sort of do that the best. But you know, to have that dramaturgical structure, they're talking about the human condition, or you know, what it means to be in you know, like sort of a Shakespearean idea of this is everything is a theater, we're merely the players. And it's that realization of you know, it's encapsulating that whole quote and putting it into one image or two images, whatever it takes to get that idea across. I think he's absolutely spot on. Sometimes I don't agree with him though, but this time I was like, oh my God, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's just a brilliant quote. I have a comment from one of the people in the audience, Claudia Kuhn, and she says, amazing that the images can be playful and depressing at the same time. It's something that you
Thank you.
I think that's a really good thing. It's a compliment.
Thank you.
So Philip, thank you so much for sharing your work with us. It was really, really fun, and I admire your perspicacity in going to PETA with these images. I'm personally very impressed by that, and thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing your work once again.
Thank you for having me. I miss California, so thank you.
Okay.
So next up is